G'day, I'm Paul. So the Porsche Macan has finally arrived in Australia. This is the fully electric one. I had a chance to drive this as a guest of Porsche's at the international launch, and I said I'm curious to see what this is like when we get back to Australia, because the roads we're on were quite nice and not really representative of what we have in Australia. So today is the chance for us to do a detailed review on the Macan Electric. Now, brace yourselves, the pricing is just astronomical compared to the last one. So this starts now here in the base trim that you're looking at just under $130,000. This is a car that used to be priced around the $90,000 mark. So it's a massive step up in price. And it takes them from being something that someone could attain above and beyond a Q5 to something that is now well and truly out of reach of those buyers. So I'll be curious to see how that all sort of fits into place and how it drives here in Australia. Now, this car is also a little bit special. We actually ran a thing on our site where all of our journalists configured a Macan, and we then put it out to our readers to pick which one they liked best. And this is the one they chose. And this has a staggering almost $90,000 of options. There is almost an old Macan of options in this. So yeah, anyway, so today we're going to do a detailed review of this. If you do want to skip ahead to other parts of this review, you can use time codes on the screen, or if you're on YouTube, you can scroll down and use the chapters below. Now let's talk about styling. Styling is entirely subjective, so you might love this, you might hate this. I quite like the front of this. The back I'm not so sold on with the sort of tapered off roofline, but I think it is sort of quite an impressive looking design. This one was optioned with this body kit, so you can see it's got quite a sort of pronounced lip on the front there, which I suspect will do some damage if you get anywhere near curbs. So I don't know that I would be optioning that if it was my car, but jet black metallic looks really good here. LED headlights, unfortunately on the base model, they're not matrix LEDs, so this has been optioned with the matrix LEDs. So the headlights are down in this section here. This is indicators and a running light. And then you've got some aero off to the side there as well. Some more options. You've got the RS Spider design wheels on the side here, 22 inches, gold coloured. They look really cool on a performance tyre. Now, this tyre is enormous and very sticky. So P0 Corsa, this is basically like not a semi-slick, but very much on its way to a very sporty tyre. So 255 on the front, 295 on the rear. This car was also optioned with the 4-axis steering. So I'll be curious to see how all this feels, given that this in its base form is rear-wheel drive, and these super sticky tyres with 4-axis can sometimes be a little bit funny when doing low-speed manoeuvres. So we'll see how that goes. You've got wheel arch cladding here that's black in colour. Indicator built into the wing mirror with a camera on the side there. You'll notice with the doors here, they have electronic strike on them and frameless windows. So that's one of the sort of design elements they've gone for there. And then privacy glass, optional panoramic roof on this one. And then this is the sort of rear section I was talking about. See how it sort of tapers down? It's not sort of traditional SUV shape. It's more a sort of coupe SUV, and they don't have just a normal sort of SUV shaped version. So it is just this sort of coupe one. So come around to the back with me. I'll show you what the rear looks like. Around the back here, you have individual Porsche lettering. No Macan badges or any other badges here. This is, again, stuff that you can do if you're ordering the car in terms of customization. The big thing here with Macan is they've lent right into personalization of cars and given you the option to really just go to town. And this is probably a prime example of how you can spend a lot of money to make a car quite unique and yours, and give it that sort of striking appearance when it's out on the road. So let me know what you reckon in the comments section below. Do you reckon it's too expensive? Are you looking at one? Did you perhaps go for the old one when they were in run out instead of the new electric one? There is talk by Porsche that they're actually going to bring back an internal combustion version of this. Porsche says it won't be called the Macan though, it'll be called something else, but it will basically be this with an internal combustion engine. Do you think that's a good thing? Let me know in the comments section below. Okay, so we're inside the Macan. This is what the key looks like. You've got the Porsche logo up the top there. Front boot, unlock, lock, rear boot, and then nothing on the back there. It's a proximity sensing key, so you can leave that in your pocket. Door handle unlocks when you grab it, and then you do have a sort of push button start over here, but you can actually just get in, put your foot on the brake, and everything just fires up. You don't actually need to operate that, but you can shut down the car if required. So now in terms of interior design, look, I think this is probably where they've done a great job in terms of progressing this over the last generation of Macan. And to be honest, so they should, because this has an enormous price tag compared to the last generation, and it needed to look special. What confuses me though is that, with the litany of options on this car, Like this, you know, feels nice, but it doesn't feel like someone has gone and spent like $80,000 on options. And to me, stuff like, you know, this roof material up the top there, which is optional, should be standard. Some of the color options should be, you know, standard or not really that expensive. So anyway, outside of that, I think this looks very nice here. Maybe not my choice of colors, but it does show you the amount of customization you can actually do to the interior. So in terms of touch points though, so sort of firm but sort of nice to the touch there, and same story on the door as well. How firm are they? We've got our durometer. We've tested the main surfaces in this cabin. If you do want to see how this car compares to others that we've tested before, there is a link in the description below. Now, what about build quality? It feels pretty solid. I will call out though, just a couple of things that have happened to me since I've been driving this car. At the launch, and I mentioned this in our review of the car, at the launch we had an issue where the suspension came up with all these warnings and failed, so we had to drive the car back and park it up. When I had the car the other day over the weekend, the infotainment just stopped working. It just had Porsche there and I couldn't activate it or do anything at all. Luckily the reverse camera still worked, that was okay. The boot leaks. When you open the boot, and it's been raining, like water just leaks into the boot, which I don't know how they didn't pick that up during the engineering process. So probably just a couple of things here that sort of suggest that they could do a little bit better there in terms of the quality of this. So this is what the door slam sounds like. So this is an electronic door release, so a slight pull of that. Now let's talk infotainment. This is thankfully an area where they've done exceptionally well. I'll get to the infotainment in a second, but I love this curved display. It is so cool. So it's an OLED screen, curved display, and just crystal clear. Easy functionality using the steering wheel here to move between the different menus and the head-up display, which in this car is the optional augmented reality head-up display, which is really cool. So they've done a good job with all of that. In terms of the infotainment, the reason this is such a big step forward, we actually tested the Taycan recently. They had the old version of the infotainment system that Porsche uses. This, on the other hand, uses Android Automotive OS. So it's a big step forward in terms of speed, how quick it is to do things, how easy it is to operate, and how much flexibility and control Apple has over this. Now, when I say that this is an Android Automotive OS infotainment system, it doesn't mean that it's actually running Android Auto or it can't run Apple CarPlay. It's just the sort of baseline that they build their operating system on, and it gives them flexibility in terms of updates and making everything work easily. So that's the sort of base display that you have. You have inbuilt satellite navigation that basically is built into there. You don't have to have a smartphone mirrored if you just want to use the inbuilt satellite navigation. Then you've got a main menu with the rest of your functions as you sort of move between these different sections. You've got games you can play on here and also on the passenger display that I'll show you in a second. So it is sort of a decent functioning system. And then you can change themes as well in terms of the appearance and customization on profiles. So fair bit of stuff that you can play with there. On the audio front, you've got FM and DAB digital radio, and this has the optional Burmester sound system, which is actually a pretty good sound system, but an additional $9,000 or so. In terms of smartphone mirroring, Apple CarPlay is wireless. This is what it looks like. Just an interesting topic, just very briefly. I mentioned a little while back in our M5 review that there was sort of issues with it dropping out, and I sort of linked it to toll gantries, and someone messaged me and said that the frequency that some toll gantries use causes CarPlay to drop out. And I thought that's an interesting point because I've had it happen in a few cars, but here it doesn't happen. Even when the phone is connected wirelessly, you can sit under a toll gantry like in heavy traffic and it just works perfectly fine. There's no lag or anything. So I don't know, it's a weird one. If you know why it's happening, let me know in the comments section below. I'll show you what Android Auto looks like. So there it is there, full screen integration. I love the fact that you still have access to the car's native controls there as well. I just hate it when they sort of bury that and you can't actually access it. So passenger display, I've said this on pretty much every car review. It is just a pointless feature. Yes, sure, you can play games and whatever on it, but I think you'd use it once and that'd be about it. It just kind of replicates what is happening on the main screen, and in an electric car just uses more electricity and adds more weight. So that's why I think it's pointless. Now, in terms of parking, you have front and rear parking sensors and a 360 camera. I'll show you what that looks like. There's there. So the quality is pretty reasonable. Yeah, it's not too bad. What other functions have we got here? Okay, so you've got a panoramic view there as well. Yeah, not too bad. And this is what the horn sounds like. Now over to Practicality and your connectivity options. So you've got a wireless phone charger in here, only 15 watts though. When you look at some of the Chinese market cars that are pumping out like 60 watts now, 15 watt is comprehensively slow. Down here, you've got two USB-C ports and a 12 volt outlet and a center console here that's sort of reasonably small. Probably one of the things they need to improve on is concealed storage. If you have valuables and stuff, you're not really meant to leave them in the car, but if you do need to, I mean, anything you put here, you can see from the outside, so it's not sort of great there in terms of concealing valuables. What's the glove box like? This is actually not too bad, so you can pop stuff there if you need to as well. Now, comfort. You have dual zone automatic climate control. It's all operated on this panel down here. Panel is sort of great in theory. It sort of moves around when you click on it, but as you can see there, it gets covered in fingerprints very quickly. So it's something that you're going to need to constantly keep clean, but it is sort of quite a nice display there. And I like these knurled switches as well. And then in terms of the seats themselves, these are the sportier seats, so they sort of hug you in nicely with a litany of adjustments. So you can go forwards and backwards, you can move your backrest forwards and backwards, you can move this front of the seat, the side bolsters, the back bolsters, lumbar adjustment, you have seat memory as well for driver and front passenger too. Steering offers both tilt and reach adjustment, and on our reach test, all of this stuff is easy to reach while you're driving. Now, second row, not a great deal of room here with these seats. So the sports seats have this sort of firm back on them, and as a result of that, knee room is really cramped. Toe room is okay, headroom is okay, but not amazing. So, it is pretty surprising how little room there is in here. And I know the last Macan wasn't exactly enormous, and you can go to a Cayenne if you need something bigger, but yeah, as a family vehicle, you're just going to want a bit more space in here, especially in the boot, which is pretty cramped as well. So, yeah, it's just I feel like there's probably quite a narrow group of people who would operate this as a family car, because if you had two kids, I just don't know that you'd be able to fit them in with all their stuff as well. So down here, you've got two zones of climate control with heated seats for the outboard seats. Air vents there as well with two USB-C ports. You've got center armrest here with two cup holders as well. Window shades that go up and down using the window controls. And then, does the window go all the way down? Let's find out. So it is auto up and down. No, sort of halfway. Now, cargo space. Press this button here to open it. Because of the design of the car, you're kind of limited in terms of your cargo space. You can just imagine if you put a pram in there, it's pretty much the only thing you're fitting in there. There's not really much room to do anything else. So beneath the cargo floor, unfortunately, there's no storage there either. So if you go for the Burmester sound system, that is where the sub and amp goes. So yeah, there's not really much room to do anything there. This car has the optional air suspension, so this is where you can lower the vehicle for easier access as well. Show you what it looks like with suitcase in there. Gives you an idea of what that's like. So in terms of space, just over 500 litres, and you've got a frunk up the front there with a little over 80 litres, and that can be opened through the car or just by swiping your hand across the front of it. Can expand this space a bit more. You just give these levers a yank, and that expands the space to around 1500 litres. Now, before we go for a drive, let's talk about battery and charging. So your charge port is located behind here. Now it's got an electric cover. There's actually two charge ports, one on this side, one on the other side. This is the only one that'll do DC charging though. So it does DC charging at up to 270 kilowatts, AC charging up to 11 kilowatts, three phase. Uses a battery that is just under 100 kilowatt hours in size, and surprisingly, it has a decent amount of range. So we're talking about over 600 Ks for the Macan 4. The entry level is like 650 or thereabouts. So how much you can get in real life though? Well, just as an example, this morning I drive maybe 2 and a bit hours to get here, and I did about 200 kilometres or thereabouts, and it had used 50% of the battery. So realistic driving range, it was cold this morning as well, is about 400 kilometres. So we've just hit the road in the Macan Electric. So this uses a single motor on the rear axle, and it produces 250 kilowatts of power. So that's just sort of in its base trim. If you engage launch control, it's an extra 10%. So it bumps it up to 265 specifically for launch control. Then you get 563 Newton meters of torque. So decent amount of power and torque there. And what does all that feel like behind the wheels? So we give that a punch. It's sort of pushes you back in the seat nicely. And what they've done here is they've really gone down the engineering path of fitting chunkier tyres to this vehicle, because part of the limitation you have with electric cars is you have to really taper in how much torque comes to a rear-wheel drive electric car. And the narrower the tyres are, the more you have to taper, because you imagine in the wet, if you trounce on the throttle, you don't want to be sitting there spinning up the wheels, engaging traction control, and just sort of making an unsafe environment for the driver. So what they do to combat that in a sportier vehicle like this is put wider tyres on, and those wider tyres give you more traction, and it means that you can dial up a bit more torque out of that and make it feel a bit more instantaneous and responsive. And this is taken to the extreme with the optional performance tyres, because you're sitting on a 295mm wide tyre on the rear, which is stupendous on a P0 Corsa, which is like a track tyre effectively. So yeah, it's quite a sort of impressive setup from that regard, but you can hear that noise. I don't know if Mike will pick this up. What you hear constantly in this car is just rocks, because the tyre is such a sticky compound. It just picks up lots of debris from the road. And also at low speed, like I thought was going to happen, if you're doing tight manoeuvres such as a hard lock turn at low speed, all you hear is just this sort of skipping noise as the tyres sort of skip along the road a little bit, because they have so much grip. So it's something, unfortunately, you can't get around, and it's not a design defect or anything like that. It is just the inherent nature of the tyres fitted to this package. Now, what does all that mean in terms of economy? Well, Porsche claims a number that I think is a bit of a fantasy around the sort of 16 kilowatt hours per 100k mark. We're currently sitting on an average of 26.3. Now, that's since this morning when I left home, where it was predominantly highway driving and then a little bit of faster driving around the track here. So, you know, it's not an amazing number. And then if you look even further at the longer term figure of 1600 Ks, 21.3 is kind of where it's going to settle. And that is pretty thirsty. So yes, you do have over 600 Ks of theoretical driving range, but in reality, I think it's going to be very hard to achieve anything like that. You're going to be closer to that sort of 400 kilometre mark, if not a little bit over. Now, we're going to talk about the ride. I do not like it, and I don't know whether it's just because of these big wheels and big tyres, but it just feels like a boat. It's sort of all over the place, and it's not helped by the fact that it tramlines heaps, just to the point where I'm like, who signed off on this? The tramlining happens basically when you get divots in the road, and the car just tries to follow all of the direction changes, and you're constantly battling with the steering. And on an entry-level car like this, it just shouldn't be happening. You totally understand it on a higher spec model, a sportier model that has a lot of wheel camber and is designed for sportier driving. This, on the other hand, should be family friendly, and I don't know if it's just because it has the performance tyres and the big wheels on it, but it really just feels a bit too much, to the point where it just gets a bit tiring having to just constantly just fight with it just to keep it just driving normally on a road. And unfortunately, the negatives continue with these performance tyres, because it means you get an incredible amount of tyre noise on the highway. You just got to crank the stereo up to overcome it. And again, that is just down to the nature of the tyres. They are designed for performance driving, not for being super quiet on the road. So we might have to get another Macan back in with just a more sensible set of tyres and wheels to see what it's like. We did put this up against our calibrated sound meter, and if you do want to compare this to other cars that we've tested before, there is a link in the description below. So in terms of visibility, visibility is great down the front there. The augmented reality head-up display is cool. The wing mirrors are big enough. Visibility out the back is pretty poor. It's quite a narrow envelope. There's no digital rear view mirror either, and I think that's probably something they need to sort out, because it is a little tricky to see out the back there. One of the things that is fitted to this car as an option is the 4-axis steering. That gives the rear wheels the ability to turn in depending on whether you're doing lower speeds or higher speeds, reduces your turning radius, and it makes that driving experience a bit better. We'll also see when the speed picks up how it affects the cornering capability, because I did feel at the launch when we drove the turbo that it kind of just felt like it was over assisted. So we'll see whether this sort of has that same feeling once the speed picks up. Okay, time to see what body control's like. While the ride is nice and soft around town, if not for the sort of boatiness, let's see what it's like here on our sine waves at 130, which is maximum speed limit in Australia. Gives us an idea of what body control's like. Yeah, it's pretty reasonable. Again, adaptive air suspension is going to make a big difference there, so I'll be curious to see what this is like on steel springs. Then we've got our bumpy road. We do this at 90 k's an hour, and it's just a shocker of a road with a condensed sine wave as well, so we can get a feel for what it's like across that. So here it comes now. Yeah, it's not too bad, and it feels quite comfortable over this, so if you were to attack a pothole-ridden road, it would actually feel quite nice. Now, just on drive modes, you've got the drive mode selector here, and depending on which spec you go for, you also have a boost function. This doesn't have that, so we'll just roll this around to Sport, and let's go to Sport Plus, and we've got off-road and normal. So you can see here it starts lowering the suspension there in Sport Plus. It turns on the electric sport sound, which is another option that's been ticked on this car, and it sort of sharpens throttle response a little bit. Let's go for a fang around the track and see how this feels, and specifically how the brake pedal feels. Doesn't feel too bad, it's a little bit wooden. Oh, look at those tyres. So this is rear wheel drive, but I'm able to plough through turn 1 there on the ride and handling track without even thinking twice about it. They have so much traction. So you basically just stay in the throttle and it is just holding on for dear life. But the suspension has been massively firmed out here in Sport Plus mode. So it is sort of fairly rigid, especially when you're hitting bumps mid-corner. You've got this faster section up the back here, yeah. Brake pedal feel could be a little bit better. It just feels a bit wooden, not very communicative. Alrighty, here comes the back section. Steering feels good though, and it's sort of quite planted to the road here, especially with these grippy tyres. All right. Yeah, look, it's sort of moving along nicely. Nothing sort of too crazy, but for a base model, it sort of holds onto the road really well. Now, this is normally where we would test the lane centering function, but from what I can tell, this car doesn't have that feature. It's optional, so all it does is just stops you from leaving the lane, but it doesn't actually lane center like you'll find on pretty much every new car today. So disappointing that it's not here and that it's probably something you've got to pay extra money for. Okay, so time to do some performance testing. We're at 60% battery. I'm in Sport Plus, PSM is off. We'll see how it goes. It's got launch control where it gives us that sort of extra boost. So brake and throttle comes up with launch control. Just let go of the brake and away we go. Alrighty, there's 80, 90, 100, and 120. Alrighty. Yeah, look, it feels good, but not stupidly fast. I think that's probably what the all-wheel drive version is for. Okay, so that is 0 to 100. I think the official time was just under 6 seconds. Yeah, so 5.94. So yeah, and then 80 to 120, 3.35. So that's pretty good. So that gives you an idea of what that sort of mid-range is like for stuff like overtaking. Let's see what the brake and tyre package is like. Given these are very sticky tyres, hopefully it will pull up nicely from 100. So there's about 100. Oh, it has just strangled me with the seatbelt. All right, let's have a look. 100 to 0, 3.04 seconds, 38.42 meters. So yeah, okay, I guess. All right, now let's see how fast it goes in reverse. Here we go. All right, 52 kilometers an hour. Okay, so the Porsche Macan. What's it like now that we've driven it here in Australia? Look, I'm going to be totally honest with you, I really don't love it. Maybe it's just this spec with the huge wheels and the performance tyres, but I don't know, there's just not a great deal of room inside. I don't find it all that practical. I don't love the way that it rides. And the price, like, I mean, there's just a lot of stuff there stacking up against it. And when you compare it to the old one was ancient, like it was there for ages, but it's still right up until the day it was done. It still delivered smiles and was a great car to drive. And I just don't get that vibe here. So I'm keen to drive another one of these, perhaps not the base model and perhaps not with, you know, such ridiculous options. So we'll see how that goes and maybe I'll change my mind then, but for the moment, not a huge fan. So let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. Yes, it is crazy in terms of the performance and the way that it goes through corners, but I don't know, there's a lot of complexity added into it. So anyway, look, if you did enjoy the review, please make sure you like it and you share it with your mates. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon. But until next time, take it easy.